This is my introduction, and my introduction is just because only this much that I am really mad about PCNL. So, in that madness, I had started doing PCNL way back in 1986, but last year, this patient gave me sleepless nights. So I thought, why not to share it with this August gathering? And what I learned out of it, I will be sharing with you. Are you there with me? If kindly see this case, and you have to tell me, you have to comment upon, you have to tell me where did I go wrong, what I should have done to avoid this complication. This is a fit lady, 42 years old female. She presented in November 2018 with left loin pain. There were no comorbidities, no diabetes. And 12 years ago, I had done her left PCNL. She never came back for follow up. And after 12 years, now she comes with this CT scan. You can see a stone in the superior and middle area calyx, good parenchyma, although there is a pyelonephritis, evidence of pyelonephritis. So that time she did not agree for surgery, and after 2 months she comes back again in a casualty with the severe left loin pain, and this time she is having fever with rigors. So this is her X-ray, but at the same time her urine culture was showing Proteus mirabilis. Obviously, you can see these X-rays. Clearly, it seems like a infection stone. And she also brought this IVP, which was done. And in the IVP, you can very clearly see that this is the stone in the superior calyx. This is in the middle calycial group over here. And this particular stone is situated here in the ureter. And this kidney is obstructed. Patient is infected. UTI, this is a closed look. This is the ureteric stone, and these are the stones in the superior and inferior group. This is the IVP. So obviously the treatment of choice was putting a drainage here because she is infected. We cannot go ahead and do a PCNL. So left DJ stenting was done on January 21st. She was sent home with the antibiotic according to the culture and sensitivity report. When DJ stent was put in, this particular stone which was lying in the ureter has been pushed back. It is lying over here now. So everything seems settled. Patient has gone home, and in February she comes back after 10-15 days. She comes back with the absolutely no fever. She is fit, but her urine culture now, in spite of earlier being Proteus, now it is growing Escherichia coli of more than 1 lakh colonies. And again, I was hesitant to operate in her in this scenario. So antibiotics were given according to culture and sensitivity, and she was told to get this antibiotic were given for 7 days, and after another 3-4 days gap, then she was advised to have a urine culture. So almost whole of February, because January stenting was done, 21st of January, whole of February was spent with the antibiotics, and 28th February she comes back, and this time urine culture is showing 50,000 colony forming units of Escherichia coli. My protocol after reading a paper in infection stone is to at least start nitrofurantoin 7 days before, particularly for Escherichia coli and for infection stone. And I also give vitamin C to acidify the urine so that the pH of the urine, if it gets changed, it is better that the Proteus and infection will be better controlled. So with all these preparations, she was called back. She was admitted on 7th of March. Her hemoglobin was 11.4, creatinine was 1.33. This was X-ray chest. This was X-ray KUB, and she was given general anesthesia. But when she was put on the table, when I aspirated the fluid, there was turbid fluid which came out. 5 to 10 ml of turbid fluid was aspirated, and this was sent for culture and sensitivity. So this is from where I started to make an entry inside the system so that all these stones in the same line can be removed. And always we should puncture the lateral portion of the superior calyx, not the medial one, because there will be injury to the pleura as well as to the posterior segmental artery. So this is the area where I punctured and I got frankly purulent aspirate. Now what to do? The question is, dilemma is whether I should proceed. 1 full month antibiotic has been given. Should I continue with the PCNL or abandon the procedure and do a nephrostomy? And in such situations, always age-old paper of P.N. Rao comes to mind. In 1991, he had said, just drain. Do not even inject the contrast, it will cause sepsis. Another paper, quite recent in 2010 and 2016, these also they say if there is a frank pus, abandon PCNL, do a nephrostomy after 5 to 7 days of antibiotics, again reattempt surgery. And if you don't do it, failure to observe this will result in rapid development of septic shock. But at the same time, these papers come to the mind where Hosseini et al., when he encountered such a situation in 45 patients, in 29 immediate PCNL was done, and in 16 cases nephrostomy and deferred PCNL after 3 to 5 days. And these were his findings. There was no difference in post-op fever, positive fluid and stone cultures, and he concluded PCNL is safe with full antibiotic administration. Another paper by Etermedian, he also mentioned if you do a deferred PCNL versus a on-spot there PCNL, there is no difference in post-op fever, success rates, hospital stay. He also went on to say if there is a thick pus, even then you can go ahead, but take these precautions. There should not be any fever or recent UTI. There should not be TLC, should be normal. Pre-op renal culture is sterile, which in my case is not so. 50,000 colony forming units of Escherichia coli are there. Pre-op antibiotics have really been given. And when there are no comorbidities, he says, go ahead. I remember a good friend, Moni Sharan, now he is in Los Angeles. He had done, when he was in All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, they had done this study out of 639 patients of PCNL in 3 years. 19 patients they had aspirated the aspirate was a purulent fluid. But when they sent it for culture, they divided it into two groups, immediate PCNL in 12 cases and delayed PCNL 7 cases. So out of these 13 cases, 13 urine cultures out of 19, almost 70% the report came sterile. So they have not given a concluding remark, but they have mentioned only the risk factors. And one of the risk factors they have mentioned is operative time. They have suggested the operative time should be less than 90 minutes, and then you can go ahead. So with all this thing going on in my mind, I went ahead and did the PCNL. This is the study. This is the same from Manish Aran. Purulent fluid is not always infected. It will be a sterile pus in about more than 50% of cases because of use of prior antibiotics, and it may be just a sterile inflammatory tissue response to calculi. So I went ahead because the stone bulk was more. I made a 21 French track between 11th and 12th rib entered into the superior calyx. I used 12 French mini nephroscope and a 19 French nephroscope. The only problem with my 19 French scope, it was going well within the 21 French track, but there was the forceps of 19 French scope. That day we didn't have the 7 French forceps, and when I used to pass the 9 French forceps through 19 French scope, the irrigation will go very slow. So it was becoming difficult to remove the stones. But at the same time, when the irrigation was going in, these stones were very friable, and hardly I had to use the lithoclast. A little bit of breakage, and because it was a compact system, the stones were coming out with irrigation. I have seen Sanjay Khadgi, many other surgeons doing with the irrigation, and the stone is coming out. So I really enjoyed the surgery. Little bit increased the pressure irrigation, and all the stones were cleared. I took 100 minutes to completely clear the system, left a double J stent, and I leave nephrostomy tube in these cases. 90% of my cases are now tubeless. but I leave nephrostomy in three situations. Once there is infection, once there is some residual fragment which I have to go again, and thirdly, if there is a perforation of the pelvic ileal system. Other cases, I don't leave nephrostomy. So in this case, definitely I had to leave a nephrostomy, and I continued with routine amikacin and ofloxacin. First post-op day, when I went there, the patient was having severe left loin pain and lower chest. I had gone between my nephrostomy tube was between 11th and 12th rib. So pain is bound to happen. The only thing was she was having continuous vomiting. There was no fever, no hematuria. She was little anxious because of pain probably. There was little tachycardia, tachypnea. Abdomen was slightly distended, so I got worried whether there is a colonic injury or not. So just looked at the wound at the site. There was absolutely nothing to suggest any colonic injuries. Bowel sounds were normal. So she was normotensive, well maintained saturation on room air. She was in the ward. So just asked for a X-ray chest and KUB and X-ray abdomen. Now this is between our nephrostomy tube is in between 10th and between 11th and 12th rib. Complete clearance has been achieved. In standing X-ray abdomen, there are no fluid levels, and chest X-ray shows little bit of effusion on the right side. My surgery is on the left side, but this happens quite often. We see such X-rays post-operatively on first post-op day, maybe because of anesthesia, lying down and all. Just ignored it. Second post-op day, the pain was more severe and she was having continuous vomiting. No fever, no hematuria. She had passed stools. I was confused what is happening. Why so much of pain? Tachycardia and tachypnea was continuing. I thought the fluid level, the IV fluid to be increased. Why the tachycardia is there? So normal, she was normotensive and saturation was always above 95%. Bowel sounds were present. Just asked for a ultrasound KUB and lower chest to see if there is a perinephric collection, but there was no residual stones, no collection. There was mild right pleural effusion, what we have seen in the chest X-ray. So I thought why she is having so much of pain and vomiting, maybe because of the nephrostomy tube. I just removed the nephrostomy tube and told her that she will be fine and the pain will disappear, vomiting will decrease. And then I asked for blood investigations and left after my rounds. This was the report. Her TLC was total leukocyte count was 40,000 and creatinine was 4.87. Immediately I had to stop the amikacin, started on meropenem. 4 subsequent days, now with this, she was shifted to ICU. I felt now this is the septic complication. So all these chest X-rays was done. Clearly see the left side, there is hardly no effusion. And we continued with the investigations. And when we had done started meropenem, the TLC had started decreasing. And here, because of the chest complication, maybe the intensive care physician, they advised to give augmentin also. So meropenem and augmentin was going on. On 14th of March, on 6th post-op day, her TLC was still 30,000 and creatinine was 5, LDH was above 100 and procalcitonin was still 144. And by this time, we had obtained the urine culture and blood culture, both were sterile. On 16th, things were okay. From there, the TLC started decreasing. And here the cholesterol was added with the help, all this was being guided by the intensive care physician. Here giving a supportive treatment, blood transfusion and one hemodialysis was done. Clarithromycin was added. So many antibiotics are being added. And now TLC is 18,800 on 20th of March. On 9th post-op day, suddenly in the morning, she became breathless. Saturation declined. So we did a X-ray chest and ultrasound, and it showed 800 ml of pleural effusion on 9th post-op day. Immediately, we aspirated that fluid. All the fluid was aspirated. She became quite comfortable, no breathlessness. And we did on same day, we did a NCCT KUB. So there were no residual stones, no perinephric collection. This is only the double J stent in situ. Everything was looking okay. And this was the chest X-ray in the same evening after effusion. So everything seems settling. We were happy. Probably discharge. We are planning to discharge maybe in a day or two. But on 14th post-op day, she was still not eating, completely anorexic and continuously vomiting. So all these, she started having fever from 14th post-op day. Tachypnea, tachycardia, she was started on Ryle's tube feeding and parenteral nutrition. You can see the Ryle's tube has been put in now. Only double J stent is in. And but anyway, but TLC started decreasing. It came to 13,500. Creatinine remained at very high level only. On 17th post-op day, again she had a very severe breathlessness and saturation fell down to 82%, and BP also started falling at 90 millimeters of mercury. Now again X-ray chest has shown lot of fluid and there was now no coming back. We had to put a tube inside the chest. This was an intercostal tube. Drainage was put and she was managed intensively. For next 4-5 days, TLC started decreasing. Creatinine did not decrease to that level. Procalcitonin on 26th of March was even now 10.6. So anyway, sepsis started settling, and now this was the 24th post-operative day when she was comfortable. We removed the CVP line, and the patient was discharged on uh, cifazidine. And then post-operatively, DJ stent was removed on April 9th, on 9th. So this was on 24 days patient stayed in the hospital, and even after 1 month, her creatinine remained 1.7. The unanswered questions which came to my mind was, what was my mistake? What was the cause of acute tubular necrosis? Because her urine output continued to be very high all through. There was never an oliguria an issue, and only creatinine had risen, and after 5 to 6 weeks it started settling down. And why the urine found its passage in the chest after 11 days? So these questions are still unanswered, but through this patient, I learned two lessons, which I would like to share with you. I blamed the irrigation system, which caused so much of problem of giving infection, sepsis. And what is the best irrigation system for URS and PCNL? It is said it is gravity, because even when the pressure is only 40 centimeters of water, the pilovenous backflow starts. When the pressure inside is 60 centimeter, and do you know what is 60 centimeter? When the patient is lying prone, from the kidney, it is only 2 feet height. If you see all our even gravity irrigation wise, our the bottle is at least 3 feet high from there. So we are at least with the gravity also somewhere around 80 to 90 centimeter pressure is there. So I will always I feel we should do gravity irrigation. We should not use pressure pump and increase the intrapelvic pressure. Point number two which I learned is Q SOFA. I hope many people who are posted, who have gone through the intensive care units, they know what Q SOFA is. But for others, I will just take 2 more minutes to explain what is Q SOFA, which I learned now. What does sepsis cause? Sepsis may be just uncomplicated, as happens in our 10.5 to 30% of cases routinely after PCNL. They have fever. They remain uncomplicated. Sometimes we change antibiotics, sometimes we don't change antibiotic. TLC is hardly raised, and they do better and they go home. Nothing happens. But there is a sect of patients who get really complicated and septic. So how to identify such patients? And complicating sepsis must be identified, and aggressive treatment should be initiated within 6 hours. That is where I missed. After 48 hours only, we could took the patient to ICU and then started the treatment. Because what does sepsis cause? It causes sequential progressive organ dysfunction, and this is called SOFA. The sequential organ failure assessment score is called SOFA. In SOFA, in ICUs, what they do, they assess every day the 6 systems of the patient: respiratory, cardiovascular, hepatic, coagulation, renal, and neurologic systems are assessed every day with all due investigations, and a SOFA score is given. every system has got from 0 to 4, means if there is absolutely normal respiratory system, it will be 0. But if the respiratory system is dysfunctional and a broad deterioration, the score will be 4. Like in neurologic, they follow the Glasgow Coma Scale. If the patient has got a score of 15 and 15, he is normal. But if the coma score is Glasgow Coma Scale is alertness and is 6, then he is in 4. Similarly, in renal, if the creatinine is less than 1.2, then the score is 0. But if the creatinine is above 5, the score is 4. So like that, the maximum score can be 24, and they see the progress and they monitor. Now, this is very difficult to us to analyze when you go for round to see all this and see the score. So what Sepsis 3 committee has recommended is a quick SOFA, which is very practical for all of us. When our patient is developing fever and when you go for round, only three things clinically you should see. You should see the systolic blood pressure. If it is less than 100 millimeters of mercury, you should give score 1. Immediately check the respiratory rate. If it is more than 22, give another score, it is 2. And if there is altered mentation, means if there is a little bit of confusion also, then the another score is added, and this goes to score 3. So this particularly group has suggested, if the patient has got a score of 2 or 3, immediately aggressive treatment has to be started and patient has to be shifted to ICU. So this is what I usually routinely do now in the evening rounds. After 6 hours of PCNL, when you see the patient, if any of these three things, if there is a score of 2, you should immediately get alerted and shift the patient to ICU and manage with efficient antibiotics. These are the two papers which you can take the picture, and these are the two papers which will really give you insight how to manage patient intensively in intensive care units, and what all sepsis can do to our patient. And sometimes without our knowledge, the patient may slip into great morbidity and even death. The risk factors of infective complications have been analyzed. All of us know diabetic, uremic, anemic, positive urine culture, all these intraoperative problem, if there is intrapelvic pressure, if there is a bleeding and tissue damage, if the operating time is more than 90 minutes, if there are residual stones, they are likely to continue to cause infection. And in post-operative period, again, if there is a nephrostomy tube, catheter and DJ stent, they are left for length of time, they may cause infection. So you should be aware of all the septic and infective complications and take care of your patients. Beware, it has to be treated within 6 hours. And my conclusion will be, even in preoperative sterile urea, urosepsis following PCNL can occur. It is because of release of bacterial endotoxins, maybe even viable bacteria during stone fragmentation. You should early identify these cases and give aggressive treatment. Although incidence of septic shock following PCNL is only 1%, but see the mortality, 66 to 80%. I always remember this case, not only because I had to really look after her in ICU and out of ICU for so many days, I did not get a single penny out of his our treatment. So thank you very much for listening to me for these septic complications.